Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and welcome to Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. This is another, if you will, holiday special, and because of that, I don't know the number of this episode, so I apologize. But nonetheless, we have a great episode planned for you today. We hope you're doing fantastic. As always, I'm joined by Chris Kringle himself, Lord Cognito. How are you doing, sir? And as the time of recording this, it's December 8th, but it's the holiday season by the time this is all coming around. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better than I thought I'd be doing.
Yeah, we're going through it right now.
Ooh, burning the midnight oil. Yeah. Grind time. But it's going to be cool listening back, knowing people listening to us, during the holidays and stuff like that. And this is a good subject. I like this topic, and I'm excited to get going on, Xboxes and get critical looks at things.
Yes. So what we wanted to do is this has been a really big year for Xbox, as we kind of expected to be. And there was a lot of ups and downs where there were moments, we had different ratings for like what this year would turn out to be. And sometimes it was looking spooky. Sometimes it was looking really good. So I wanted to do here is kind of do, if you will, a highlight reel of the major moves Xbox did this year, the major releases they did this year. Look at them honestly, objectively, and then look at 2024 and beyond and what they can improve on, what they can account for, and what's going to be, I think, the biggest year for them in a long while, because now you have Bethesda in the fold, you have Activision in the fold, no real distractions of FTC arguments. So what we're talking about is developer direct, that format being established. We're talking about Game Pass's release cadence, which switched from more quantity drop to quality focused drops. We're talking about Redfall and its release quality. We're going to get into the Xbox Summer Showcase format and how they adjusted it from 2022 into 2023, kind of shorten or expanding that window rather of what could be included in the announcement window, and how that could be for better or for worse. We're going to talk about the massive Xbox FTC leaks that occurred and how that kind of changes the outlook for Xbox moving forward, with Bethesda's schedule being out in the wild, and of course with the consoles potentially being out in the wild too. Starfield's release is something we're going to talk about. This was the biggest one of the year for Xbox and the biggest one of the generation, no doubt. We're going to talk about Xbox finally, at the end of it all, acquiring Activision Blizzard King and what this means moving forward. And then we'll get into 2024 and beyond, talking about the likes of Hellblade 2, Avowed, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Stalker 2, Clockwork Revolution, Fable, Outer Worlds 2, Blade, OD, State of Decay 3, 33 Immortals, Towerborn, and South of Midnight. Quite the lineup there. So we're just going to take this honest look at 2023, see what lessons can be gleamed from it, and how Xbox can move into 2024 a little bit better, or what they could just maintain because they did it right the first time around. So, Cog, I want to start off with the top of the year, where we got a developer direct. This was something we'd been asking Xbox to do for a while, in the sense of like, give us your own kind of showcase format. You had the Nintendo Direct, you had the PlayStation State of Play, and it looked like those had their own kind of reasons for existing within those respective communities. The directs from Nintendo, very adjustable, same with State of Play. Xbox need an answer, and we got two this year in Starfields, but also really I want to focus on the one at the top of the year, which included a shadow drop from a first-party studio, Tango Gameworks, and Hi-Fi Rush. This is a format I am a strong believer in. I feel like this could be adjusted for one game, as it was with Starfield, and had one of the best showings of a game, whether you talk about the quality of the game or not. I'm not even getting into that yet. Just Starfield as a showing of like what this product is. I thought was one of the most open, honest, transparent looks at a game we've had. And it's certainly extensive. Like, you knew what you were getting by the time it was all done. The only thing they didn't really show were the powers that you would get. They just teased those. So I like this format. I love how it had the developers speaking for themselves. I like how it still had the, it was a little scissorily at times where I thought it could slow down and just show more expansive looks at the game. But it's kind of become this thing where, at least at the time of recording this, again, it's December 8th. Like, I hope that this becomes like a top of the year thing, because it felt like as a community, we immediately got this sense of direction of where we were headed. What were the major beats I had to plan around if I'm in the Xbox ecosystem? So I was really happy with the format that was established here. I don't actually see a ton of room for improvement off the bat here. Like they've knocked it out of the park these first two. So I'm curious what you think of the developer direct. Are you looking forward to a potential one at the top of 2024? Are there any adjustments to the format you would make?
No, I thought this was good because there was a lot of questions at the start of the year about, once we heard that it was coming, like how would they approach it? And let's be honest, the stigma prior to that, and I know some people ain't gonna like it because I wasn't a fan of it, was kind of like the inside at Xbox. And are they going to make this more of a non-gamer, more of a marketing show than actually
Mm-hmm.
showing and focusing on developers? And you nailed it. Like it was so refreshing. So to me, the thing that I like was literally hearing from the developers, microphone and face, obviously, what was going on with Minecraft. And we got the magic that was, Hi-Fi Rush or Forza was stuck in there. Hi-Fi Rush was huge. Obviously, a stealth drop, magical energy. The game played well. But what I actually like, I want to give them credit, is actually the production value, because one thing I kind of know about Xbox is, even though we say, yo, bro, do what Nintendo does, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a way of saying that we have to have our own thing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I did like the production value of, kind of seeing the physical location of the studio and being in the building. It personalized it for me as a person who loves to interview developers. I like that. I was like, okay, cool. We're on site with, whatever. So I thought that was cool. I think they need to stick with this format. I thought it was concise. And then it also set things up for what I see eventually, which is like, okay, guys, I know you guys were looking for Starfield here. It's coming, but we're going to have its own thing. We'll talk to you later. And like you said, set the direction, set the tone at the top of the year. And yeah, if cadence wise it works for them, at the top of the year, great. Continue to do it at that in that time frame. But yeah, I really like the developer direct a lot.
Completely agree. Yeah, and
Mhm.
and moving forward, I hope it's a like an established beat where we just, especially with how much is going on in Xbox's pipeline. I feel like it's a needed sort of guidance for what's going to happen in major beats throughout the ecosystem. Um, do you think with Game Pass growing as it is and developing its own community, if you will, do you think that they should start doing? Would it be too much? I'm just throwing an idea out here, like a monthly Game Pass direct or something like that. Like, here's what's coming to the service, and kind of making a little 5 minute show
Hmm.
out of it. So I've always found that interesting that the drops to the service come in the form of like social media JPEGs. Like
Yeah.
they're not trailers like, here's the next one, right? Like creating a little hype around it. I've
Hmm.
always found their approach interesting. It's like, yep, here's the next drop, and like the community creates the excitement around it. And
Hmm.
maybe that's the goal of it all, right? Let them do the viral marketing, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm wondering, do you think that
Yeah.
they're going to evolve the format further and maybe bring Game Pass into the loop?
Um, I'd probably say no. I would say only because of the volatility of a Game Pass deal. I do think that there's a lot of moving parts, and I think sometimes things come together last minute. So, not that they're not going to have the cadence and the volume of actually being able to put stuff in the service. It's key. But let's just say you have one of those months where it's like 2 or 3 games versus another month where it's just a plethora of titles. So I think they look at it like, let's save money here, let them do the marketing. But I will say they could do a better job with the promotion of Game Pass outside of their own individual events. Like when we watch the showcase, right? You see Game Pass, the trailer, the sizzle, all that, but it's really limited to their ecosystem. Like you don't like obviously the Game Awards, obviously as it was recording, we watch this after, we did see some stuff there. But I still think the common issue is that a lot of the common folk still does not know really what Game Pass is and it exists and what you truly get out of it. And I think they have to figure out a better way to get that message out there as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
only seeing it in a direct, only seeing it in these very specific locations
Yeah.
visually.
Yeah, I agree with how like every year they make like a good luck, have fun kind of trailer of all of these different games within Game Pass that you can have. And um I just think more national marketing would get them to the next level with that service. It seems very clear. And one of the moves that they made earlier this year is when they were adjusting the leadership structure, Matt Booty looking over both Bethesda and Xbox, as they brought a lot of the Microsoft marketing team in the fold with the Xbox team. And so maybe next year we'll see a more concerted marketing effort from Xbox to get this on a even bigger mainstream level. Like, gamers know about Game Pass, but I feel like this is the service that you can bring to, I have to say, like the casual, be like, yo, it's like, nah, I don't got money or time for that. It's like, but it's 15 a month. And that's the easiest selling. But wait, so you're saying like Starfield, Hellblade 2, like all these new games coming out, I don't got to pay 70. Like, that's what the service was built for, right? To just to rope those people in who are on the fence or don't want to spend the money or what have you, or committed to one part of the ecosystem, to get them in and be like, wait, this is just great value. And so I feel like they're not weaponizing that enough, where like it's not solidifying their competitiveness. Like, this is the thing you should be using to beat your competition over the head with, because you were the only one with it. So I'm with you that, yeah, I think a lot of more national marketing for Game Pass would go a long way, like on television, during sports games. Like, sports games, man, like, especially, bro, why isn't there heavy MLB marketing? You've got the show. You got the show in Game Pass, and you've done it like 3 years in a row now, where it's like, this is an expectation you're creating. Like, I would not be surprised if top of the year, here's another MLB show game in Game Pass. And if that's the case, dude, like, you got to start marketing that. You got to start pushing like, hey, MLB fans, this game you buy every year, it's best here because you don't got to pay extra for it. You can expect it. So, yeah, I am totally in agreement with you that the Game Pass, I think, needs a lot more marketing.
Yeah. Bro, you're on fire. Like, literally is what I've been screaming when you're saying all these things. Is what I'm saying to myself in my head. Like, Game Pass marketing should be like synonymous and almost borderline annoying, like the State Farm guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, there should be a face or some type of specific marketing thing cue that you go, oh, here come the damn game, because you know it's coming. And it's like you said, almost a casual guy. Hey, Jim, you didn't know? Like, why are you buying that? Bro, I got Game Pass. Like, it should be that type of a natural thing, and they need to attach themselves. If they don't want to spend the money with an actor or whatever, they need to get involved with that national marketing. You're completely right with the casual. That's a fantastic point.
Well, speaking of Game Pass, we can move on to one of our other subjects here, and that the release cadence really switched this year, Cog. Like, for a while, Game Pass was just coming in with a barrel of titles and just dumping like 14 at once. And it was great, like, especially as they were doing the build up of content. Like, I remember we literally got Hitman's entire trilogy, and then we got the Mass Effect Legendary trilogy like a week later. And I remember I was saying, like, this is amazing, but these are two incredible games. Or sets of games. Who has time with all the other releases? And it felt like there was this collective realization at the same time that maybe it's time to slow things down, focus more on day one. And we're still getting good delayed drops. Like, for example, one of my favorite drops into Game Pass is Dead Space Remake. Yeah. That didn't come until like November, right? And so if you're patient, you're going to get that. But also, there was really good quality day one drops. I felt like your Wo Long, for example. And while I wasn't a fan of it at all, a lot of people really liked Atomic Heart, which was one of the biggest games of the year. It had like 5 million plus players. It sold really well, and so on and so on. So I thought the release cadence and quality for Game Pass was an upgrade. I know it's not going to be 100% clear across the board, but I think are still having a tough time finding a good multiplayer game that is a clear fit for Game Pass from third party that isn't just a complete disaster at launch. I remember Back 4 Blood. It's like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, this is going to be a perfect game for Game Pass. And it was like not good at all, right? And then we have Payday 3. I'm thinking, perfect fit. Like, how could you go wrong with this? Like, I totally get why they'd make this deal. And everyone's back to playing Payday 2 already. So I find it to be that's like the weak spot, is like they're still trying to find like that multiplayer experience on a third party level. That's like a natural partnership that they bring into the service day one, and it's not this messy game. But I mean, man, they had Lies of P.
Yeah.
They had Lies of P. So I thought it was a strong year in the terms of quality for Game Pass, especially in the day one category. What
Mhm.
about you? Did you like this shift that Xbox made where it seemed like they were spending a lot of the budget more on the day one stuff instead of just dumping into a catalog?
Yeah, because I felt like 2022, I wouldn't say they regressed, but I felt this year the focus felt like the shift was to quality and less quantity. So I was actually really impressed with some of the chances they took on a lot of games. Seeing like Sea of Stars in there, and I know Maddie didn't like my Trek to Young, but I love Trek. What I'm saying? Like there were certain games though this year though that I really felt like, wow, this is cool to see this. In the service, Cocoon, the big games, Lies of P. I'll give you they took a couple of chances on like Exo Primal and a couple other games that from a multiplayer perspective that I think necessarily weren't massive, but I thought there were a lot of good still like co-op games in there as
Mm.
well. But yeah, I thought that listen, for the most part, Game Pass has been fantastic this year. I thought they really had a strong lineup of titles. I wouldn't change too much. I just think that it's going to be hard sometimes to, as your first party now grows, the reliance on the day and date major third party Game Pass banger may go down a little bit because now
Mm.
it's like, yo, first party is now about to turn up. We don't need to. So now you could be a little bit more selective and really focus on, continue to focus on quality, kind of thing. So that's where I'm at with it. I thought they did a good job. I felt this was better than last year's lineup overall. They may not have had maybe like a super major smash, like the year they had Outriders and whatever. But I felt like, yo, I know it is my. They were. It was like a consistent
Yeah,
reign
they
of
were at a good clip.
titles. There was no like before I remember Game Pass, there'd be some gaps, when you be like, yeah, okay, when's the next big thing coming? These are kind of a little smaller, or these are like an older collage of older titles, the kind of thing. But to get things new day to day and that consistency with a variety of different genres, JRPG, indie, yada, 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 big game, Souls game, Wolong, this one, last, I thought they did good, man. I thought they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope into 2024 they keep it at this pace. And I think you're totally right that as first party goes up, third party will go down because you don't need to warrant the spending at this point. But yeah, they did a good job filling in the gaps. They had a couple of moments where like delays, if you would, I put in quotes, like kind of screwed them where like Liza P was delayed into August. And then they also had Sea of Stars day one on Game Pass. So it was like that, and then Starfield. Like that was an
Yeah,
insane 1, 2, 3. And that
yeah,
was all in the stretch of a couple of weeks.
yeah.
Where just, it was tough to play all of those at once.
Mm-hmm.
And most probably didn't. So I wonder if they might be a little bit more reserved in that department, or if they see big spikes where like it's actually worth going that hard. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Moving down the line here, Redfall comes out, and we've dedicated a number of episodes to Redfall, but this is another big part of 2023 that we have to account for looking ahead because this was a release that was so disastrous that it not only demanded that Phil Spencer go on a podcast to explain himself and what happened with the game and where it was overlooked, but it definitely led to a complete leadership overhaul. Sarah Bond, now president of Xbox, Matt Booty now overseeing the content for both Xbox Game Studios and Bethesda. They overhauled the marketing side of things. And hopefully this leads to less oversights moving forward. But we knew through leaked FTC emails that Phil was hoping that Redfall would be one of the big games of the year. And I mean, it was a big game in the terms of conversation, but not for the reasons they would want. So Redfall's quality speaks for itself, even after the patches, I believe. And this is something that can just never happen again. I'm not saying every single Xbox game has to be this 10 out of 10 banger. I don't expect that, especially with how experimental first party is being right now, where you're getting your big AAAs, but you're also getting these more like AA style titles, if you will. But they cannot let something like Redfall happen again because it eroded a ton of trust in like immediately, like the quality of Starfield was being questioned. Immediately it was like, oh, and you're in the process of getting Activision Blizzard King? Like, what are you going to do to them? you've had Bethesda for how many years, and you didn't know this was cooking underneath your own house, underneath your own roof. So, my question for you, Cog, is twofold. It's number one, how does Xbox respond to this moving forward? Have they already course corrected? And also, is this to you maybe just a one-off?
Good question. This was what I consider their watershed moment. This was the moment of complete embarrassment. That's something that could happen like this. Like you said, Phil has to be called in, so to speak, and to kind of talk about it, even though his initial reasoning, I think, for going on kind of funny and those guys wasn't that, but he addressed it. So, look, this to me was one of those moments that when we look back, it was a black eye on the actual platform, but necessary for processes to improve, and they could not continue to operate when you acquire companies in the fashion that they were. Because to me, it did set off a chain of events of, like we talked about, leadership structure, Matt Booty now in charge of all of Xbox Game Studios, and ZeniMax and so on and so forth. So that to me, for a game to be come out that you either internally your testing is your internal reviews are higher than what it ends up coming out, right? That was the big surprise. We were like, didn't you guys see? What did you guys feel? Right? We heard the conflicting information, so that was interesting. Two, I think it was a watershed moment for Bethesda in the sense that you are part of Xbox Game Studios, right? So now you see if something happens with you, what comes with that, because it not only just affects you, it affects the mothership, right? That's what we also learned, and it put everything else in question. So I personally, as rough as that stretch was for them, in my mind, I'm like, this is a good thing that it happened now, so that you can course correct process. And like Phil said, well, we should have been in there earlier. We should have did. You've got to, because you can't be so hands off. Remember, it was the hands off approach.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Versus, okay, we need to task mask, micromanage, whatever. They clearly don't want to do that. And the studios they have don't want that in order to be acquired. But clearly you can't be this absent parent and not give something the love and attention it deserves. And that was the lesson learned. So part of me thinks it's a blessing in disguise, but one of their darkest moments where people were questioning, why should you own anything if you mishandled something like this? It almost took me back to Halo Infinite. You know what I'm saying? It was like in the beginning, you know what I'm saying, on certain levels. Not that Halo Infinite was not a lack of quality game, because it wasn't at launch. Mm-hmm. But we all know, the issues with the live service component. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was a necessary evil that had to happen. And I think the message was felt. So we'll see. I think they'll be fine and learn from it.
Yeah, perfectly put. And I hope they've learned from it, because we can't keep having this, ever turning cycle of like, oh, you worked over this studio, hopefully you get them next game, like give them the blank check, like, I'm talking about, where like we were saying, like Harvey Smith deserves that treatment, just like Todd Howard got that treatment, that benefit of time and effort. I do think as like I get away from Redfall more and more, it was this lose-lose situation for Microsoft and Xbox, in that, it's a game that probably should have been canceled, like, to tell the truth. And I know some may disagree with that, but I'm not saying it just because I like it. It's just there wasn't much there. And to get it to where it needs to be, you would have had to spend an extreme amount of money on it, where it probably should have been canceled. But if you're Xbox, you can't come in and cancel the next new IP of one of your marquee studios that on paper to many sound great. Co-op, open world, vampire game with arcane level design. Look, even when I was at my most skeptical ahead of the release with the trailers and stuff, I was still like, it's arcane, man. And I remember my aging like milk statement was, I think Colin asked us, like, what do you think Redfall's going to get? I was like, probably like an 8. Oh my God. So off. So there's that trusted quality that was clearly missing there. And so, yeah, with Arcane, I hope they get their chance to really clap back, not only with Blade, but I know that's Leon, but I hope with like the Austin team, they get their chance to really shine. But yeah, I just hope that the lesson is fully registered, that level of oversight or lack of oversight can't happen again. Because I get it. Like if you cancel the game, it's going to look bad. And if you let it go, we saw what happened. So they were going to lose big time no matter what. I think they maybe internally anticipated this game would not have been this poorly received. I think maybe they were hoping for like low 70s, which still I think would have had some sort of conversation on like, hey, Xbox, like, you know, aren't you supposed to be getting the big exclusives out that kind of like put your platform on another level, not like the mediocre ones. So I think a conversation would have happened regardless. And in that sense, you're right. Like when it feels inevitable, COG, it's like, yeah, like I'm kind of happy it happened. I feel like they should have known in the first place. Like the thing that bothered me the most with the launch was when Xbox is like reportedly caught off guard by how the connection was there. Like, oh, but that's the game bad. Therefore, oh, we're bad. I'm like, how do you make such a big to-do about acquiring them? You hoard all of their content. You make it exclusive. You make it yours. What do you think's going to happen? So hopefully now message received that anything exclusive from the consumer point of view feels like you have looked at this and found enough value in it that you wanted to make sure you could only get it in one place, and that should raise the quality bar because it's what gets people to buy your system or buy your service. So yeah, like I've said multiple times, hopefully lesson learned on Redfall.
Yes, well said.
Next up is the summer showcase. This one I guess will be pretty brief for us, but the format in 2022, as you elegantly put it, really stripped some of the magic away. It was everything you're seeing here is coming out in the next 12 months. And what we're learning as time goes on is Microsoft is a very reactive company.
Yes.
Especially the Xbox component. Yes. Very reactive. Oh, you don't like this? We're going to do this next time. So the big thing was like, man, Xbox, you're announcing games and they're so far away. We want to know what's coming now. So they do that. It's like, no, now the magic's gone. Like we want a mixture of both. Like we want now and then. And I feel like 2023 showcase, I still give it an A+. I still thought this from top to bottom was their best. And I had a blast, like from day one Game Pass to addressing the needs of the platform with like major JRPG focus to exclusives now and in the future, a massive Starfield Direct. Like as an Xbox fan, for the first time in a while, I felt, hey, I have a lot going on here. I have a lot to keep me busy, a lot to look forward to. The content's flowing. And not only that, but I felt heard. I felt, again, with the JRPG side of things, that's something that we've been going hard on. I did mention at that point, this is before all of the Square Enix stuff had gone down, that like the needle hadn't moved entirely for me because it felt like Sega and Atlas were the alternative selection to Xbox since they couldn't get Square. But now with like, for example, Visions of Mana making its way to Xbox, it feels like, okay, Square Enix and Xbox are getting on along and this is pretty good stuff for them where JRPGs are going to flow onto the platform. I felt like this was the kind of the wall, the dam wall bursting and the water flowing through like, oh, there's Persona 3 Reload, there's Persona 5 Tactica, there's Metaphor ReFantazio, but then there's also Fable, there's also Starfield, there's also just so many games. Avowed, Hellblade 2.
Hellblade 2.
It just, it felt like a blast of everything we'd kind of been waiting for. And while some showings may have been underwhelming, like I know some had problems with how Avowed was graphically, which I get, or how Hellblade 2 had at the time no gameplay, like no actual combat gameplay. I get all of that for sure. But I felt like this was one of their best. And I hope the format next year is much of the same, where you can have those moments of wonder, the wow, while also showing what's coming soon. Like, you know, knowing that Starfield was such an anticipated game and getting 40 minutes of that. And then also knowing after that, like that there was a whole entire showcase. I mean, that was an incredible stretch. It really was, where I remember by the end of Starfield's Direct, I was feeling kind of overwhelmed. That was pretty heavy with all that was happening. So, Cog, what did you make as the person who really, I think, opened my eyes to what was wrong with the 2022 showcase? What did you think of the format this year? Do you think this should be what they do carrying forward?
Yeah, message received. I was in that crowd. I was physically there, you know, and they really got the idea of, okay, we need to have a concise show, bang, 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 less filler. Yeah, you know, Shadowbound might come out for one segment. Yeah, Phil may come out at the end for a recap, but I think it was the promise, the fulfillment of the promise, which was, I called it the draft class of 2018. And for years people were like, what are they doing? What is Compulsion doing? Okay, finally here's South of Midnight. Okay, what is Fable? Right, we talked about it, but we haven't seen it, and I thought they showed fantastically. The graphical fidelity of that, the high production value was off the roof. And Starfield, that was the MVP, because coming into the pressure was, we don't know what this game is, right? And I have to be honest, it to this day, that direct is the best showing of a video game I have ever seen, where you leave no doubt what this game is, right? And you saw the passion from the developers. I really thought they knocked it out of the park. They had a good mix of indie, big times. I remember when 33 Immortals showed out, I believe, on that stage. It was really good. I'm not going to go through every single game, but at the end of the day, they really showed out when they needed to. And I feel like the summer, the whole showcase really started this momentum push for them for the rest of the year. I felt, coming off of Redfall, coming off the CMA block, right? The morale of the platform and people who are fans of the platform was down. Thus, shout out to my brother King, Hold the Line was great. People were like, yo, the hardcore was like, we're not giving up on you, but you got to show out. And I think that showcase really reinvigorated the base, and people go, yo, they're here. They've got some fantastic stuff. We could see it. And let the good times roll now. Now it seems like it's on and popping with really fun, exciting titles.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hopefully they just continue that on. That showcase I thought was spectacular. And of course the extended directs I think are good at that. As someone who's been a longtime BGS fan, there's just so many people in that team that I don't know. And so I thought it was good that it was very little Todd Howard. I thought it was very, very good. I think it was to his benefit, might I add, because I think 76 may have been this eye-opening moment, like where it's like, oh shit, like people are just stapling my face all naturally. Of course, he's the spokesperson for it, but like taking all my quotes, everything, like he was the subject of all the abuse. And look, like 76 was awful. So I'm not saying it's undeserved, but I'm sure there was that adjustment of, hey, let's spread the wealth. Like, let's all say a little something. Let's focus on the team here. So I thought it was good though. And I hope that moving into more developer directs that get like that singular game spotlight, that it continues to show the entire team.
Yes, I agree.
All right. After this, we had the massive Xbox FTC leaks. This is where we got a number of things. We learned about the next console, the kind of future platform, if you will. We learned about the digital Series X. We learned about this new controller that they seem to be making that is very much focused on cloud gaming. We learned about a roadmap, including the likes of like an Oblivion remake, remaster, Fallout 3 remaster. We learned about apparently Dishonored 3, which I don't know if that's happening anymore, Cog. We learned about just so many other games in the lineup there. There's much to look forward to for Xbox, but maybe wasn't all announced on their timeline. So we covered it pretty extensively, but what did you make of the FTC leaks now that we've had a couple of weeks to think about it? And how does this change their plans moving forward? How does this change how you absorb information from the platform moving forward, like knowing like, hey, digital is going to be a really big focus here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we learned, I, to their dismay, I loved it because I got to learn the thought process. And the first thing, for me that I gained out of it is, okay, the console future is still a part of this platform. Right. And we learned about the revision, the Series X revision, Series S eventually, and then obviously the hybrid potential console after this generation. So those are the first major things, the controller, of course. But to me, I thought what was very interesting is we learned how they evaluate companies from a mergers and acquisition standpoint and the things that they valued. I realized how important mobile was for their long-term future and how they will continue to expand and look at companies as far as, I mean, even, our rapper Bungie was on that list as far as things that they were looking at one point, prior to the ABK acquisition, right? And then we saw why ABK made sense to them or for their long-term plans as far as hitting all these major bullet points, even though it wasn't listed. Because what I learned from them, they didn't probably think that would even be something that could happen for them because they had all these other, companies and things that was supposed to be in that place. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and then ZeniMax, obviously a roadmap and what they were thinking as far as, Ghostwire Tokyo 2 and, Decided 3. And I thought it was interesting that they came out and said, hey, shame that this happened. This is not 100% accurate as far as,
And
I
in
don't
some
necessarily.
cases, the plans have changed, Cog, and some, that's
In some senses, yes. In some instances, yes. And what we know, what we learn now is there's a dynamism, there's a dynamic nature, there's a fluid nature of, some of these things. Things can change, right? Square didn't happen, Sega didn't happen. Look what happened, right? ABK. So to the ZeniMax thing, Dishonored 3 was on that. Right now, we didn't know about that. We don't see anything about that. But now we see Blade. Blade wasn't on that list, at that time. So yeah, it does show that things can change. But I just thought it showed me a lot on how they think, and I learned a lot about it. I really felt like, okay, I have a sense of what Xbox is doing, and hardware, PC focus, mobile, cloud, all of this is part of the pie. As far and it's services and revenue, what's a high profit, high revenue for them, what they consider low. Like you learned a lot with their thinking, yeah, and they were very, very aggressive with comments.
Yes.
In that, yeah.
Yeah, so we got a good look at these plans. We know that mobile is a huge target for Xbox through these, not even the ones that they acquired like ABK, but just the targets. Everyone was about mobile, Square Enix, Sega, and so on and so forth. These are companies that they want to go and get. And I'm still of the mindset that just given now we know these were targets for Xbox, that the next company they're going to acquire, because they plan to continue shopping, especially now they've beat the FTC in the biggest acquisition in gaming history, as Hogue has said before. They're going to be bullish. They're going to go out and go for someone, I think, quicker than we imagine. And I think they're going to target a big Japanese company. I do. And I think that's going to plug another weakness. And now you have the biggest mobile game on the planet in Candy Crush. And then you also have Call of Duty Mobile. And we know that they're heavily pursuing this mobile storefront. Like, yeah, I think the acquisition is going to be built around that. And so we learned a lot of that through the FTC leaks on just like email exchanges on how like they talked about the Xbox mobile store with Square Enix.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of, I think, where the idea sparked, like looking at how much mobile output Square Enix has. They just did like Ever Crisis, for example. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. So I still think like those two companies, Square Enix and Sega, are like on the table for Xbox. Like I think their targets, like Sega just bought Rovio. Like that's a huge injection of mobile content. And then Square Enix has all of these Final Fantasy IP and whatnot going on mobile. They have an Octopath game, Champions of the something. Like they have a ton. So I feel like this is going to continue to be a focus as Xbox builds up that side of things. So the FTC leaks taught us about that. When it comes to their future, I am I'm not fully convinced there will be a box. Just because of the usage they've done, like of the usage of words, like the platform is a word they've used, or anywhere, Game Pass exists on a screen. And I know it's Tim Stewart, but like they've said, like, Phil, anywhere Game Pass exists. I feel like the platform is shifting, and this might be like option, if they do some type of hardware, it's going to be option 1A. It's kind of play your games, but it's not like the same as it used to be. And obviously we can only be so clairvoyant in that we're talking 5 years or so from now. A lot can change in that window of time. So we'll see, but I'm not fully convinced, especially with the next controller they're doing, that like this is going to be this piece of hardware that you find in a storefront, and that like, you need to download your games. Like they talk about how more people than ever stream their games first before committing to buying them. So I get why the hardware is necessary and I advocate for it, but I think they're trying to get rid of it. I do. Okay. I think they're trying to find their own path, and I think this is it. So I'm not totally sold on it quite yet. But I am excited for that controller, because that that thing with the wake up when you immediately lift it, and the auto connect and all that. It looks great on a feature level. Game wise, when it comes to Bethesda's schedule, I'm not gonna lie, Cog, Blades substituting Dishonored 3 shook my confidence a little bit in that, like, if there is a good option on the table that a sequel we may be yearning for, and granted, this goes back to July of 2020, a sequel we may be yearning for may get canned in place of something else. And so, you get Deathloop, and then the Blade partnership comes along. It's like, why would we've done 3 Dishonored games, like, right? Like, let's move this along. So I wonder about my Fallout 3 remaster. I wonder about, my Oblivion remake remaster. I trust Oblivion's more real than Fallout 3, but I wonder, with that kind of little substitute there combined with Phil's comments, unless there was on the list untitled license game. So,
I mean, you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah, like, do you think because development's just starting on Blade now as we speak, right, that maybe Arcane's been working on something else, and that's going to get out before Blade?
Teams can work on multiple projects.
I love how I just talked myself in that circle. I started off with like, no, and then I came back around to cope, and here I am again, like, yeah, it's on, let's go.
No, I understand the concern. Yeah, I mean, look, to your earlier point in reference to the console thing, I'm on the opposite side of it. I still think it is too much. It is the way they get their revenue for it being on a device, and microtransactions and all that stuff is still a huge part of their business. And as much as they may want to eventually long-term leave console, I don't think it's feasible to do at this point. It's still, again, you don't have a console in 2028, hybrid, ARM, whatever, if you are really trying to get rid of it at this point. I just think that in perfect case, yeah, like, if there's everything technology-wise is there and profitability can be shifted otherwise, you still need console on some level right now. I still think to your point, it's probably something they, like, all right, begrudgingly still want to do, they have to do.
Yeah.
That's what I give you that. I would give you that. I don't feel like it's
I wonder if the console, and I say like a 1A option, I think I did a bad job explaining my thoughts. Like, I wonder, Cog, if it's like, is there even going to be a disc drive on this thing? I don't think so. Point. They're selling half a disc, a game on a disc already. Is the store shelf presence going to matter to them? And I mean, that goes to what we said earlier about like Game Pass marketability. Like, you need to take that up a notch, right? So I wonder about that, where it just may be like, do you think, okay, think about it this way, right? Let's say they're doing this all digital platform. All right, I feel like I'm doing what you would normally do here. Like, I'm posing to the collector, the digital only future.
Yes.
What would be a great way to get someone into the ecosystem than saying like, look, there's no disc drive. This is like a digital streaming device, and like, for your next gen console, this is the cheapest it's been. You can come in for $250, $200, and like that's your way to access new Xbox games moving forward. So I'm just wondering, do you think that could be an option for them? Like, just really cheap, digital only, no disc drive. I mean, they're not really, when it comes to like DRM and like game preservation, like Xbox gets the rub as the best because of back compat, but like they're kind of the worst. So just curious what you think about all that.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding with the way this generation started, right? The existence of the Series S is the bet, right? Because they're literally doing everything you mentioned, which is, again, the no disk drive, subscription service based, digital only kind of thing. And, with Game Pass as the driver. So to me, that's the test. And they're going to look at all the data points and see how much does the consumer truly care about all of that. And if the data suggests that they don't, and gamers are not buying the disc, we are the ones that's going to sit there and say, yo, they should have did this. They should have kept the physical. And they're going to sit there and say, fam, based on these numbers, 90% of users do blah, 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 right? It's all about trends, user habits, and where things are going, and future forecasting, kind of thing. So we'll see at the end of the generation. But I get your point with I call it the begrudgingly still doing, because you need revenue from it, the consoles, that kind of deal. Yeah.
I hope there's one more, truly, just because like we were all kind of robbed during the pandemic. Like, oh yeah, there was this lack of magic in, I like was just chilling at home. Oh, the box is here. There was still that excitement, but like not being online, waiting for it, getting home at midnight.
Yeah.
That's why I remember the Xbox One launch so fondly. Like I was out there from like 4 p.m.
Yeah,
and
no, I
on. So
remember. I remember,
yeah,
bro. It's a whole. We're in the middle of a shift. We're definitely in the middle of a shift for sure.
yeah. Let's get into everyone's favorite subject now, the release of Starfield. This is one that we talk about pretty extensively in our holiday DDU, focusing on like Starfield side quests, faction quests, and just kind of the future of the game moving forward. So I guess we'll try to keep this one as brief as we possibly can. But no doubt Starfield was the biggest launch for Xbox this generation in the terms of like, you have to get this right. You have to hit a home run here. And it's been very contentious. It has not been the absolute grand slam that I think they wanted it to be critically reception wise. I think the conversation on Starfield got soured really quickly, which I'll just say I think is a bit of a shame because while I am very critical of the game, I think that this is the only game this year that I could sit down with a group of guys, as we've shown twice on this channel, and be able to like share stories and learn new things about the game each time. Like the cooler moments for this game, I think are some of the best I've personally had. But the conversation's mostly been about what Bethesda's missed and how this game did not resonate with everybody. So it's a really interesting conversation of, okay, we got Bethesda Game Studios' most polished release, like in terms of bugs and glitches. This is definitely the best they had. You can feel QA was all over this. The game on a commercial business level was wildly successful. Top 10 most played Xbox Game Studios game, 12 million plus players. And I say this not to be antagonistic to the audience. I'm not trying to egg anyone on because I'm just trying to talk Starfield. There is a bit of goalpost moving whenever we talk player count, where they're like, well, this is superficial, but we know Starfield's a top 10 selling game for 2023. This game, like, I'm not trying to dissuade anyone. If you didn't like it, that's cool. This game on a business level, okay, we're talking business, bean counters, which is of no concern to us, but I think it's an important part of the conversation nonetheless, was extremely successful, okay? It had the highest surge of Game Pass subs that a game has ever brought to the platform. Business-wise, I don't think Xbox could be more pleased with what Starfield brought to the table. It was a massive injection for Game Pass, for cash, for conversation. This was the release they wanted, even if critically and fan reception wise, things went south. So I'm curious, Cog, for you, who I love Starfield, but I'm super critical of it. I know you're critical of it too, but I think you love Starfield more than I. I'm curious what you make of Starfield's release and what Xbox could glean from this moving forward, if anything at all.
Yeah, high pressure moment. A lot riding on the success of this title and a new IP from Bethesda as well as Xbox exclusive, right? So you had all of those factors into it. And you said it perfectly. I felt like this game was a commercial success, an engagement success. This exceeded every internal metric they, could have imagined, right? It wasn't critically received, like you perfectly said. It was not. It was mixed, right? So they didn't get the double whammy of, yo, we are making massive money, bread on bread, bro. Look at what we're doing. We're breaking the server. Look at everybody's playing in this engagement. Look at the what was it? The numbers were insane as far as the pre-orders before it actually released.
Yeah, it was over
the
a million.
Paid bundles. Oh, it was insane numbers. So they knocked it out the park and did what they were supposed to do commercially, right? The question comes down to was, for the gamer, right, was like, was it a game of a generation, right? And that's the debate. That's the contentiousness of it. And that's fine, you know what I'm saying? But I think they look at it like, okay, this was huge for us. I think it gave Bethesda a shot to say, okay, we got through it. I think as a result of it, I do think there's a little Halo Infinite energy as far as like they took that extra year and everything in their power to get this thing across the finish line from a polished standpoint. They didn't want egg on their faces. They didn't want to have any embarrassment. And I think as a result of that, maybe we wait a little bit longer for a Shattered Space expansion and so on and so forth. But mission accomplished as far as what Xbox needed And what Xbox needed was something to drive you to that console, drive you to that service, right? Get people engaged in the zeitgeist. Because whatever you feel about stuff, or even if you don't like it, this conversation is not to be defensive, right? From an Xbox standpoint, they got you into the platform and PC and Steam as well. So I think that was what I got from it. And I think internally, yeah, they're happy. Would they like critical acclaim and an award? Absolutely, they want all that stuff. But as far as what they know what this meant, the back was against the wall, Manny. It really was, because
100%. If this game was like a complete disaster,
oh
god, which it, by the way, was probably shaping up to be if they had not had Microsoft's leadership.
yes,
They were originally planning to launch this in 2021,
bro.
And I mean, look, imagine what you got today in 2021. That shit would have been broken, no doubt about it,
bro. And the last thing, I don't want to understate, Starfield won NPD for that month of September. That I have not seen from an Xbox exclusive title in some time. So that was, again, that said all I needed.
Halo Infinite won December when it came out.
No, yeah. I don't know if Forza did, and then Forza was their biggest time. But this did. Starfield cemented itself as the new thing for the Xbox platform. I've never seen anything else generate that was an Xbox exclusive, so to speak.
No, 100%, completely agree. And moving forward, this is a game that's going to be supported for a long time, and many people are down on that because like the player count dropped off a bit on Steam. Although collectively, I think Starfield is doing extremely well player count wise, since it was still in the top 10 for Xbox 3 months later. That when inevitably Creations, which was added to Skyrim, makes its way to Starfield, and you see that fan-made content, you see the Shattered Space and whatever other updates they bring to Starfield. This is, I think, going to be a game that's going to I think its trajectory is upward, not downward. Yeah. I don't see them making this game worse over time. Absolutely. I think it's only going to get better. I think it's only going to gradually win people in, if you can accept a lot of what it is, which is like there's a lot of fast traveling. I don't know if they'll be able to ever get around that, but we'll see. But yeah, I think the pun intended, sky is the limit here for Starfield and how it moves forward. So I am optimistic about it. I am optimistic about the post-launch support. And even though it wasn't everything I loved about a BGS game, I loved it enough to put it in my top 10. And I loved it enough where I will be there for whatever they do next, which I think says something about after a strong year like 2023.
Absolutely. I'm super proud of that team, and I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to see where they go with it, because there's so much potential and long tail. And Microsoft looks at it as that. They come out constantly and say, this is a game we intend to have continue to be played in the way Skyrim is. We don't know if it'll ever get to Michael Jackson Thriller numbers. Remember, that's Michael Jackson's Thriller album, which is Skyrim. But for a new IP, this was fantastic for them to have this level of engagement for a single player, no co-op, no multi-transactions, none of that. Just old school Western RPG sensibilities, so to speak.
After this, I mean, the good times kept rolling for Xbox. They finally finalized the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. So at the end of it all, a lot of distractions throughout this year because of the FTC. Even, in fact, I would say there were moments in the year where otherwise this show would have been dead with nothing to talk about, but the FTC and Xbox kept it nice and full of things to discuss across massive leaks. And I mean, you have to imagine the relief when this one crossed the finish line, just because of how much they sacrificed in the public eye, going to battle with PlayStation, clearly souring that relationship a bit, having their plans leak, not only for themselves, but Bethesda. They sacrificed a lot to get this company. If at the end of all of that, they ended up empty-handed, it would have been pretty like panic button mode for them. I think we just lost so much in all of that. And it would have probably dissuaded them from acquiring further, just because of the money lost in that they would have had to pay to Activision Blizzard King. It would have been ugly. But that's not what happened. They ended up with ABK. And now they have the entire library there. They flew out this year, met a lot of the teams under the ABK banner, spoke with them about, what they're passionate about, trying to figure out what games everyone can work on. And so there's a restored optimism that Activision and Blizzard can be separate once more, that Blizzard can return to its former glory, much like how myself and BGS fans felt like Starfield was this opportunity for Xbox to restore them from the 76 days, the Fallout 4 era, to the Fallout 3 and the Oblivion era. And depending on who you ask, maybe they failed, maybe they succeeded on that. But there's optimism for that. There's optimism that Activision won't be such a toxic place to work at. There's optimism that IP that have been chained down, your Tony Hawks, your Spyros, your Crashes, your just Singularity, the list goes on, Hexen. Like there's just everything from the vault that could come back combat. There's optimism. So there's a lot of optimism surrounding this. And I'm wondering, Cog, heading into 2024, what does Xbox do to harness this power? What is their first move, if you will, that really establishes like Xbox and Activision are one? Because we have that feeling with Bethesda now. How are Xbox and Activision going to state that they are one?
Yeah, well said. I love everything you said there. What a tumultuous journey of that acquisition. Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, how
dominated our show for a while too,
bro. How many defining headlines, titles, and
our poor audience.
Our poor audience. It was like, hey, we got to talk about it, that kind of deal. But yes, to what you said, to see everything now finalized, they get it done. They sacrificed a lot, I feel, of resources. Also, I think they sacrificed a lot of company focus and direction because all hands had to be on deck. And let's be honest, there's a lot of feigning weakness for public perception in court so that you can get it done. So now we get past it. We're here. We see the immediate reaction, which is let's fly out to Blizzard. Let's fly out to King. I think King was the first trip, I believe.
Yeah.
King was the first trip they did to fly out there.
They saw those dollar signs. They're like,
yeah.
Let's go.
Because to me, the deal is about Call of Duty, but the deal is about mobile. And the deal is about you are entering a space you have no knowledge of success. You don't know how to do it correctly. You've tried, you failed multiple times. Sorry, Windows Phone. But that's just the reality. Now you acquire something that is dominant in the space. You need to learn from them. You need to get, and the reason why it's important for the gamer is because this is going to help sustain the things we want. The Blade games, the whatever games, the hero games, the just ones. That's why it's important. I know a lot did not care about this, but I, looking at this, very objectively, said, no, this is what they're securing their future. They're securing a revenue stream that is immense. So yeah, that's what I got from as far as next year, how you implement it. All eyes on me is Blizzard, because all eyes on, you have WoW, one of the biggest franchises going from an MMO standpoint. Do you play around with console integration? Do you play around with expanding that? Do you open that up? You know what I'm saying? Like to even more platforms, like a PlayStation, in conjunction with Tim Stewart's comments, right? For the big IP, the Minecraft, the COD, does WoW get there? Then the other thing, PC Game Pass. We see, Phil's out in Brazil talking about this is one of our biggest markets, that kind of thing. Obviously the mobile integration, the mobile store, how do they implement that? What's a part of that? How does that go with their plans? So now all eyes are on 2024 on how you integrate, because now you got the deal done. The real work begins now. This is a hard undertaking. This is not easy. Blizzard and them are looking to you to say, okay, hey, help us. We didn't like how things were going during the Bobby Kotick era, and you got Mike Barr and those teams. This is going to be critical how they end. I'm not worried. I'm just like, what are they going to do with that, right? What are they going to do to truly help those teams, yet at the same time expand what they're trying to do with their overall vision? So it's exciting. It's exciting, but they get paid the big bucks to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. So, and the last thing, I think you said it, one Duke, before. No more excuses, because you've got the biggest publisher. You've got, you literally, it would be like, this is, Mets hot stove. You've got the biggest free agent. You signed the A-Rod of its time. You know what I mean? Like you can't mess this up. A lot of futures are on this, right? It's exciting, but you have to execute. So the pressure is on. I don't want to minimize it. This is a
Yeah.
big deal. So yeah, this is it's gonna be fun to watch. Especially, I say keep your eyes on Kings of Moneymaker. You can't fumble that back. But Blizzard and PC, how do you handle that? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I'm very keen to see how they handle this because they've been together for a decent amount of time. They've talked about how the integration's going quicker than expected, but to our surprise, we thought there would be a roundtable, if you will, kind of like what happened with Bethesda. And there has yet to be that. There has yet to be this beyond Twitter, beyond a couple of interviews, this public commitment that's seen in a visible, tangible way, gamer wise. And so whatever that first move is going to be needs to be noteworthy.
Yeah.
And I just wonder now because like does that factor into a developer direct, right? Like do you say like, hey, like here's Odyssey, for example, like as part of the other first party games that get announced or just extended showings of, is that how you make the first introduction, or do you do a roundtable with them first? Like there's a lot of public showings that need to be done first, I think, to properly establish what to expect. Because like one of the questions, and it's still a question, funny enough, like right now we're as we record, like we're in the thick of figuring out like is Blade exclusive or not? The big question with all of these IP and all these studios Xbox acquires, like, is this going to be exclusive? So what is the status for Activision games? Because he said for Bethesda, he said with like Legacy and stuff, they're going to support everything online. They're going to support everything. But like, it's like a new game, you're going to a platform where Game Pass exists.
Yeah.
And it seems like that rule is constantly in question. So I hope they establish something pretty firm on what's going to be happening with Activision. I know you can't give an answer in perpetuity, but Xbox fans are hungry for meaningful exclusives. Yeah. And when you acquire these companies, the reason that any Xbox fan gets excited is because they know, okay, like I like that can be a big value addition to my investment. And so they need more verbalized, tangible commitments from Xbox in what they're going to be doing with these companies they're acquiring. Because I think the fact that we're here at the end of 2023 debating Blade and there's the possibility that it's not exclusive is absurd. I can't believe like we're having this conversation right now. And I don't want to get too off track just because who knows if by the time this goes out, if things have changed, if comments have been made, or if it's a PlayStation game, whatever it may be, it's going to be, it is what it is, right? But point being is there's always these floating question marks, even around their biggest moments. That should have been a moment like, yo, it's Marvel. Xbox has their Marvel game, but look what the talk is about, because they've not been clear enough, because they've not put their foot down enough, or when they have the announcement, they just don't put their branding on it. So it's, the only thing I saw was like the content creator influencer manager who's worked with us directly before when it came to Blade did have Xbox tagged. They said like Marvel plus Bethesda plus Arcane plus Xbox equals Blade. So yeah, I mean, I like maybe that ends up being exclusive, but the point being is we're stewing, we're stirring, we're trying to figure out what it is. And I'm hoping with ABK, that's not a problem. That's to me like priority one. Like, let us know what we are going to get. I think beyond that, cleaning up the workplace is like priority, I guess, like 1A or 1B, just because like for us as consumers, I think 1A is the games. We want the well-being of the developers to be taken care of, but we know that, I hate to say it, I'm not speaking for myself, that we know most gamers don't care. They just want the products at the end of the day, unfortunately. And so, they need to put as much time and attention into cleaning that place up and making it a place that people look forward to working within as possible, because many people within Activision see Xbox as like beacon of hope in what is otherwise a pretty dismal place to work at. So I hope that they work towards that. And I think that with the inclusion of Activision, you had in 2022 the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, like this marriage, right? Then this year was the Xbox showcase with a lot of Bethesda presence. So next year, I'm imagining it's just going to be the Xbox showcase with the expectation that Bethesda and Activision are going to be there, right? Like, I don't know if they're going to do the Xbox and Activision showcase at any point to kind of create that marriage. And then, I'm spiraling at this point, but there's just a lot of question marks lingering that I hope they answer.
No, well, the main point that you're on fire with, the theme of what I get from you, what you're saying, is clarity in message. You have to have it. We can't have the questions. Why this, but why not that? You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
clarity and being on board with messaging and being on brand is going to be big with them, especially with ABK. Yes, I
yeah.
agree.
So with that, Cog, we've kind of covered all the major beats for 2023. And now we look to beyond. We look at 2024.
Yeah.
We look at the years afterwards, where I have this list of games here. Hellblade 2, Avowed, Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, Stalker 2, Clockwork Revolution, Fable, Outer Worlds 2, Blade, OD, State of Decay 3, 33 Immortals, Towerborn, South of Midnight, Project Shaolin, Elder Scrolls 6, and obviously much more to be announced from like the likes of Bethesda, from the likes of Activision, where like we talked about the leaked Oblivion remake or the Fallout 3 remaster. You know, these are games that that we don't even know about. So I think this list is only going to grow, potentially double throughout 2024. There's a lot on the way though, and I think for fun, we could pick out one that we're most excited about, most anticipated from Xbox in 2024. Obviously, a lot of these games that are listed are 2025 and beyond, but also what you're hoping to see as maybe a surprise or see more of next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, all eyes are on Hellblade 2, man. I
Mm.
just think that that is technically the hashtag just one is just that it's a sequel.
Mhm.
It hit every single bar and it really showed well at showcase. But I think that to me it's important because as we know, that style of game tends to resonate the most with people from other ecosystems and the casual,
Yeah.
right? So it is imperative that Xbox knocks this out the park, and I think Ninja Theory will do good. So I'm looking at, and that's probably the most anticipated. Even though I'm Team Obsidian, I'm Avowed, my heart is Outer Worlds too. All that is COG, but I understand, and rest in peace, my good brother Dizzy. I understand what a successful, critically acclaimed Hellblade does for the Xbox platform. And I'll sacrifice my selfishness
Mm.
as the RPG guy. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. But as far as what you said, like another one that's like anticipated, but maybe either there or we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
I'm looking at things like 33 Immortals. I'm looking at I'm gonna be honest, I'm looking at ABK. I'm looking at Call of Duty.
Mm.
I think, listen, as the person who is the non Call of Duty guy, they've got to be shouting this from the marketing rooftops. They've got to you go to an esports thing. I hate to sound real foul. Like you got to put all the Xboxes there now with the Xbox controller, and you've got to let everyone know this is where it's at now. And you better
You'd be
get there.
foolish not to. It's not even like we're advocating as like, give us the win. It's like you've spent
Yeah.
so much on them. Like you've got to have your fingerprints all over Call of Duty.
Bro, I want to see a Series S Call of Duty with the skull face band that they got the meme on, right? And you go in every Target, every Walmart, and go, oh, yo, I can leave right now with this card because the pack in Game Pass, whether it be the 2 to 3 month or the month or whatever it is, and then you in on the system. I want to see the Game Pass core and all that stuff. These subscriptions go up, and also because we talked about how poorly they are doing in European markets not named UK and Germany, right? Where I want to see the localization for the Call of Duty. I want to see Call of Duty in those areas. You see what I'm saying? And all the big ABK titles to get that group to say, "Oh, yo, Xbox is serious. They're here now." You know what I mean? And this is the biggest game that they're here now with, so to speak. You've got to do a better job there. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at as far as the 2024 and the thing I'm probably anticipating from them. It's time. You
Yeah.
spent all this bread. It's time to turn up.
Yeah. I agree. I think for me, I have to speak to my taste. I just
Yes, of course.
Avowed.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
hope
yeah.
I don't know if this game will come out next year. I feel more and more like I could see this getting delayed into early 2025, just given how what we saw was pre-alpha, and
Yeah.
that definitely needs a lot more time then. But nonetheless, with it having that potential window, uh, the idea of Obsidian making pretty much fantasy outer worlds with like highly interactive magic, and also having, by the way, the lacking of ego to admit on camera this was going to be multiplayer, but we pulled the plug really early. It's not the type of game we're built to make. and just recognizing strengths, re-energizing the team, and feeding into that. Very excited just now that they know that they're making their usual style of game. I loved the Outer Worlds. So for me, like to get a fantasy version of that is going to be crazy, especially set in the Pillars world, which I'm just not into the Pillar style of gameplay. There's actually a really interesting chat over at GDC that you can watch. It's of Josh Sawyer doing what I think is one of the most admirable things I've seen in game development, which is he's literally dismantling why Pillars of Eternity 2 failed and why Divinity Original Sin 2 leapfrogged that game and like why it was successful. And he broke down the combat, the story. He took blame in a lot of instances on choices he made. It was it's an incredible chat. He's there for an hour just dismantling, systematically dismantling his own work. And it's on a public stage, no less, to teach us about that kind of, I put in quotes, failure. It's not a bad game. It just didn't do well commercially. He's like, why is that? Here's why. And so, yeah, I hope that I can get into the Pillars world with Avowed, but also in the terms of a game that maybe we're not hearing much about, but I could see us hearing more about next year. I'm going to stick with Obsidian, man. I am under the firm belief that Outer Worlds 2 is way closer than we expected because to our knowledge, thanks to good old LinkedIn on multiple occasions, Outer Worlds started right after the first one. And they had a couple expansions under their belt. Obsidian's a pretty big team. They seem to have taken the Xbox acquisition most in stride out of anyone who has been acquired by this company, where they got Grounded out, they got Pentiment out. Like they, to me, have not lost a step. So I have no reason to not believe that Obsidian is primed for like the Insomniac level double whammy of, yeah, you're going to get Miles Morales, and then a little bit over half a year later, you're going to get Rift Apart. And like that is, and I know like Miles Morales wasn't like a full big game like Spider-Man 1 was, but I mean, you could spend an easy like 20, 30 hours in Miles Morales. So it wasn't like a small game either. So I could see like Avowed and the Outer Worlds 2 like being a year apart. People going, what? So I feel like there's a chance, you know, we see more of the Outer Worlds 2 next year. And I would be very happy if so.
That was Deja, sorry. Yeah, no, I think you're onto something. You know, something I've echoed. I think that game is closer than many may think, and just a matter of the cadence, right? And to your point, yeah, I'm super excited for Avowed in whatever order they have. I think the most excitement I have for 2024 is the potential of Hellblade and Avowed in the same year with everything else. Like that could be massive. And if Avowed's not ready, hey, Outer Worlds, if you want to step in a spot, and, you know, hey, go for it, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, I agree.
Last thing I really wanted to dive into here beyond the games is going to 2024. I want you to cherry pick one thing that you hope to see Xbox improve on. I know we've highlighted a lot of that. I know we talked about like messaging, marketing. We talked about quality release with Redfall and stuff. I want you to cherry pick like one thing maybe you felt we missed here. And if we overlap, then good. We'll just both tackle it at the same time. But one thing that maybe you felt we missed here that you hope Xbox finally gets together on in 2024.
Feature complete launches. So
talk.
What I want is no more of the live service fix and forget it later. You know, we'll do that. We got you. It's coming because we evolving as a platform with said game, right? So because of the success of Game Pass, we still have to set a quality standard. And when it comes out on launch, whatever title it may be, right? If you need more time, delay it, great. But if you launch, please launch with all the features you discussed would be available. Because I don't want this mentality of just throw it in the service. We'll continue to evolve it over time. And don't worry, it'll definitely be great eventually. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want that because it sets Game Pass branding back. As you could just It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
the effect is negative to the overall product, and we can just fix it later because the install base is there.
Exactly. And I don't want a bargain basement feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you walk into Best Buy and the first thing the bargain basement joints, and
yeah,
I want to feel special. I want my joint presented nice. I want the napkin, the guy with the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I want that. That's what Game Pass is to me. Like Lies of P, like that level of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
energy
Speaking the
all the
language.
time, right? Feature complete. I want Hi-Fi Rush level of feature complete. Oh my God, this is a massive quality game. Everything is here. Wow. This is amazing. I can't believe I feel like I'm stealing on getting this on Game
Mm.
Pass. Don't give me this. Yeah. And we're going to get you the other tracks later. Yeah. You're going to get the bunny ears and the maps. No. No. Feature complete. That's what I want. Quality standard, guys. I know you can do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mine would be messaging, but since we really went in on that and just how mixed it is, my other one would be living up to something that they've teased one too many times. And I don't know why this thing keeps getting backburnered, but I think it needs to be a priority. Achievements. I think it's time.
Oh, good call. Good call.
It's been time. You created this system. This meta game revolutionized what gaming was for so many people. And to let PlayStation lap you with your own ability, and who knows what Nintendo is going to do next with their own console if they finally get their own version of like achievements or trophies. I just wonder to myself, like, if they now lap Xbox, like this is going to look even worse for them. So it's time for them to take their system and do something with it. And I say this especially now because quietly Xbox has been whittling away at the Microsoft Rewards program, which was one of the original top reasons why achievements were so great at this point, because it was like, yeah, they need an overhaul, but look what's happening. Like Microsoft Rewards, you'll like play a game and you'll get a certain amount of points, and like you can turn this into cash. And I don't know why, but I mean, they're giving you way less. They're changing the requirements for how to complete challenges. They're completely overhauling that part of the system, where it went from going like, okay, I need to spend a lot of time on this platform, but if I do spend a lot of time here, I'm going to make a little bit of money. Maybe I can pay for a month of Game Pass one of these months with the rewards points. It went from like that to just like pennies on the dollar, man. Like it was a major regression. And so now it's like, okay, I get it. You know what? Evil villain Microsoft will show its face, as I've said before. Don't get it twisted. They will show their face as they continue to solidify themselves more. But okay, if you're going to take that away, give me the free digital goodies that are achievements. Overhaul the system. Where is your platinum? Diamond
Preach.
achievements are cool, like the idea, but everyone's been asking, and I know this is where stubborn Xbox comes in, right?
Let's go.
This is one of those situations where like it's the developer direct all over again. I see the vision, I get the idea, you want to do your own thing, and I think in those moments it works out. But this is one of those moments, bro, just mandate the developers one more at the top, where once you get all these, this one here
Ooh,
unlocks. Call
yes.
it the crown jewel or whatever you want to call it, so that it filters into that naming convention like diamonds and whatever. Call it the crown jewel. I got 10 crown jewels on Xbox. Like that sounds cool as hell. Finito. That is it, truly. And the fact that they've been missing this is not just me being someone who enjoys achievements. The fact that they're missing this is blatantly ignoring that purchasing decisions for many gamers hinge on this. Many people love the metagame of trophies and achievements. And there was a time that maybe they were neck and neck doing their own thing. But there is no denying that as time has gone on, and I'm guilty of it. I talked about in another show. I bought recently Bomb Rush Cyberpunk on my PlayStation because, I mean, it wasn't available at the time on Xbox, but I bought it on PlayStation. So I was like, you know what? The idea of getting the platinum, most of these games, by the way, I don't even get the platinum for, but I buy it for PlayStation because I think to myself, well, if I fire open that list and the platinum's easy to get, I know I'm going to be spending the max amount of time here. It just immediately, it's like this switch in my brain flips. For many, that doesn't exist, but I'm not going to pretend it doesn't for a ton of people. the person who owns the company we work at is one of those people
Yes,
who's built his entire personality around like collecting
indeed.
achievements. So, or trophies, sorry. So I think it's way more important than Xbox has given it credit for. And I liked how they brought the Microsoft reward system closer to it. And I hope that is a part of this overhaul, but I think it needs to come sooner rather than later, man. I really do. I think they are sleeping on what is something that will, those fringe purchasers, this makes that conversation internally with themselves when you're looking at the Xbox and the PlayStation like a little bit more difficult. Right now, it'll just come down to probably like, what platform are my friends on? I just feel this is something they need to stop talking about, which they keep saying it's on the roadmap, it's on the list. It's like, how far down the fucking list is it? Dude?
Is it?
Like, you guys have been saying for 3-4 years now, like it's on the list. What have you been doing beyond that? So, like, especially with back compat over and smart delivery over, okay, we've coped and accepted that. You got to tackle this. You can't keep avoiding it. It is important. And I know you missed your window with the new generation, but with like a mid-gen refresh might be a good shot in the arm. I could go on, but I won't.
Oh, well said. Well said. I mean, for me, I was just, while you're talking, I was looking at my Xbox profile, and I've been 20 years on Xbox Live. 20 years. That's literally a child. I could have had right there, you know what I'm saying? And I look at it as an OG Xbox alpha tester, for Xbox Live. They are the trailblazers in the area, right? And the trailblazer is now lapped in terms of the features and the things that they themselves introduced. So yeah, I'm with you. They need to do this. I want not only that, because the wait has been so long, like I told you before in previous Dukes and stuff that I've talked to with other people during the Mike Ibarra days when he was an Xbox employee, there has to be even a more deeper level on the profile. Hey, you're a guy that plays just Fortnite all the time. You're a guy that plays this, some type of entitlement or thing that shows your dedication in your profile to these said games. I remember the era of the avatar specific unlock based on how much commitment you had. You played Gears all the time. You might get this Gears shirt for your avatar or some badge to commemorate that. For a company who values live service and engagement as their content and services business, you do this, they're going to engage with the content consistently. Yeah. This literally goes hand in hand with what your revenue vision is. So you need to get on it. You can't be talking about it. And I know part of it is eye off the ball with ABK on some levels, but there's no excuse with you being the actual trailblazer in the online space and in the achievement space. So yeah, they got to get on it. I hope eventually we actually have that, platform update or mid refresh, UI
now
refresh.
It's just building the expectations, dude. Because now it's like, what are you guys doing that's taking this long? Like, this isn't a new complaint. This is an old one that's been on the bulletin board for a while here. So now if they just come out, and I feel like they've put themselves in this spot where I said earlier, like they could have just done a platinum to play devil's advocate with myself. It's like, now if they do just that, some people might go like, really? That's it? And I would be like, great, that's it. Yeah. Like, that's all we wanted. But I feel like there are going to be some fans who are displeased. Like, you took this long just to add this in. Like, why couldn't you have done this 8 years ago? Yeah. So, that's a good point. Yeah, we'll see where it all ends up. But I hope next year they finally address that.
Yes.
Anyway, Cog, that was a great critical look at Xbox going into 2024. I'm wondering how our audience responds to this and how they feel about 2024, 2023, the year Xbox had, what they hope they improve on. And so naturally, we encourage you to sound off down below. Cog, we need a hashtag for this one. You got an idea in mind?
Yeah, let's go. I was going to say Xbox Future is kind of long. DD Future?
I like that.
Yeah, DD Future. Let's go DD Future.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you got this deep, you want to let us know your thoughts on the episode down below, you can use the hashtag DDFuture. Throw your thoughts in the comments. Otherwise, Cog and I are over on Twitter. I am at G27status. Cog is at Lord Cognito. You can find us there. Throw your thoughts our way. Use the hashtag DDFuture. otherwise, Cog, any final thoughts in what I think this is going to be our last episode of the year. So
Yeah.
any closing thoughts here?
Well, fantastic. First of all, shout out to you because fantastic hosting. This man, you don't know how hard he works behind the scene. He makes my job so much easier as a person, as a fellow host. I know the preparation and things that it takes to kind of make things interesting, and he always comes into Duke with this tremendous energy and insight. And I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you this
Thank
year
you, man.
because again, this was, as all our shows, in my opinion, so insightful, and you get my creative juices going the way you approach things. So salute to my Mr. Matty Plays, Realm of the Duke, fellow Duke, another year in, and salute to the audience, man, because you guys been rocking with us. And someone had a funny comment, and it's not trying to bash anybody. It was like, other podcasts, and then it was like the Dukes, health is wealth, this is that, this is that. It's kind of like you guys, we bring this different type of energy. And it's dope. And the last thing I think, I want to say, shout out to Spotify, obviously, taking a shot with the Dukes and the audio listeners, everyone that writes in, it really is appreciated because I think we are doing something really special. And I love to see that energy when, you see people say, yo, my top 5 was Divine and Duke. And I did so many
hours. A lot of
hours.
tags this year. It was really a good feeling. Yeah.
It was really cool to see. And it means a lot. As people, let's be honest, Matty, who work as hard as we do, because we don't give ourselves enough credit. We both work extremely hard. It is a little refreshing to see people that truly appreciate the work and the energy we try to do and for Divine and Duke. And shout out to the LSM fam for holding us down,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it, man. What about you?
I appreciate your kind words. Because like I do try to put a lot of time into the show. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but you make it worthwhile. Like you show up prepared. I've had hosts in the past who just don't show up prepared, and it feels like my energy gets siphoned because then I'm like, okay, like I can't, like I might as well have gone and made a video then, because right. I can talk for myself, but the conversation that we have is what's important. The friendship, the brotherhood we have is also important. I think that's what makes this show really special. Is it's we talk often off the air, which I think is such a key component of our show. Is it's not like, all right, see you next week, dude. Like we talk within the same like hour of us finishing up the show sometimes. So I appreciate you for all the effort, time, and energy you bring in here, and just for the love you bring in, man. Like that's you bring a special energy to this show. You kind of, I call it the it factor. Like you have something that people love in you. And I think it's just that infectious energy of like, man, how can you hate this guy? Come on now. Like, so I appreciate you for always being here. And especially with the year you've had health wise, man, like for you to show up, you I don't know if you missed a week or not this year. I don't think you did, but I hurt my back and I had to miss a week because I literally couldn't sit in a chair. But I mean, like you were going through it this year, bro. So for you to show up as often as you did, very brave of you, because it's like we both are guilty of getting in our own heads super often and getting down on ourselves. And when life is tough and then you kind of subject yourself to the online space, it can when it rains and pours is what it becomes. So you show tremendous strength in just pushing through some scary moments in your life to be here and to lift this show up to a whole other level. So I appreciate you doing that. And I appreciate our audience for hanging with us. This wasn't an easy year for me really either on a health front, but really on an emotional level, this was a real test for me. I was going through a lot of changes in my life behind the scenes. I had like an ongoing chronic health issue for over a year that I was just quietly, I mean, you knew, Cog, and people close to me knew, but I was not making it public because I always get afraid when I talk about that stuff. Like I don't want people to treat me differently because they feel bad. Like, oh, he's like sick, or, in my case, for those who didn't pay attention, like really bad balance problems. I think through physical therapy, I've not had any issues in a couple of months now. So I've, God bless, I've been doing really well lately where, I don't feel like I'm on roller skates constantly, which has been nice. I have a sense of like peace physically in my life, but I just always get afraid of talking about that stuff because I don't want people to think you're like mooching attention, and I don't want people to think like this is I don't want them to go like they're about to give us sound constructive criticism. They're like, yeah, but like Matt had a tough week, and I appreciate the consideration. It's just I don't want to ever disarm someone from helping us make our show better. So I appreciate the audience hanging with us and joining in those conversations and really sharing their own health as wealth stories. You know, the reason we talk about this stuff is your write-ins let us know that it's important that we focus on this stuff. I'm really going to take a good serious look in the mirror this holiday break and adjust a bit. You know, right now we're running on fumes. This is we podcasted on Tuesday, twice on Wednesday.
How many times I've seen you today?
Yeah, man, I'm barely keeping track. Like we've podcasted like 7 times in the last week. Yeah. And we're talking full shows like this. Yeah. And so it's been that moment of like, I can feel like my body, like my muscles in my chest are really tight right now. My shoulders are very sore because I'm just hunched in this chair talking. I only have like light upper body movement.
Shout out to Hayward.
Or even like going to the gym. Like, it's like, I don't feel like I'm getting up enough. So it's given me a moment to reflect here during the holiday season on like, how can I better orient my life to be a little more healthy, where I know this is a part of my living. I'm going to be podcasting. I'm going to be in a chair 2, 3, 4 hours at a time. What can I do surrounding that to offset the feeling you get physically from it? Because, I don't think it's good long-term. So I just appreciate the audience investing in us in that way, because, it lets us continue to reflect further. And as long as we better ourselves, hopefully we can have that impact on those around us who, we're not perfect here. Certainly we're not, but to have that human level impact beyond the games is important and rare, is what I would say in closing. It's, there are definitely people who I think in the internet like walk the line where they don't want to piss anyone off. And I don't think our goal is ever to do that. But I was having a really good talk with a close friend of mine about this year was definitely, I think, in the terms of challenge, like we had a stretch where we were like really having a pretty rigorous back and forth with members of our audience, some being disingenuous for sure, intentionally, but some just not happy with the product. And this was kind of a test for us to kind of, where do we respond to feedback? Where do we carry ourselves and just have faith in what we're doing? Where do we double down? Where do we take our victory laps? And I was talking with a buddy, and he said something that was really impactful, because I was like, sometimes like the internal temptation with how strong, especially during the stretch with Starfield, like you just don't want to say something because you're like, I don't want to deal with it. I just don't want to hear from you and the shit you have to say. It was encouraging to hear something along the lines of, I believe he said, I think it's important you say things, even if they piss someone off or make them feel good, because that means what you've said matters. And you're moving the needle one way or the other. And since I know our intentions are good at heart in that we want to have meaningful conversations always, it was this kind of last shot in the arm to get through this year where I felt very restored in this sense of, you know what, I've never questioned myself, and I'm not about to do it now. And and that doesn't mean I'm impervious to mistakes or constructive criticism or any of that stuff. I'm always open to that. I think our show displays that. But it was that moment of like, you know what? Yeah, like I'm going to talk my talk. I'm going to give my opinion, because that's the value I think I bring, is that I do not compromise in what I believe in that moment. And like, I'm willing to hear more information and change as time goes on. I think I have the open mindedness there, and I know you do too. But that, the fact that we want to have the meaningful conversation, and we're gathering an audience who wants that too. That was kind of the last stretch of this year that's really bogged me down. So I appreciate the audience hanging with us. And I feel like, we definitely have recovered. Like, it's not like we were getting beaten down, but just there was like the continuous whining from a lot of people, or disingenuous reframing. And we would get pissed at that and be like, and shoot back. And it was just this toxic back and forth where we finally pulled out of that muck. And I think the audience collected with us. Like, they've moved with us every step of the way. So I'm on my main character monologue now. I'll stop. But I appreciate everyone supporting our show, because just to tie it up here, what Cog said is true, that I spend a lot of time preparing for this show, and I do it on top of my channels. I do it on top of the game I'm working on. I do it because I hope that people will show up and enjoy what I think is a much more different feeling product from what you can typically get in the podcast space, which is super saturated. So I hope you all enjoy what we put together week in, week out. Again, a lot of time goes into it, and a lot of sacrifice for our bodies, if you will, goes into it in a different way. It's not like we're out here like construction workers, we're developing arthritis early, but we're putting in the work where we hope that we're putting together these quality shows that you enjoy and continue to enjoy. And I think One last thing, sorry.
Mhm.
This has been our biggest year yet. And
Yes.
we've seen numbers that we only dreamt of for Defining Duke. Maybe it's not been as, Kagi and I have talked privately, maybe not as consistent as we would have liked at times, where like after Starfield, there was a bit of a drop and then we've picked back up. But I'm proud of us. I'm proud that, during the big moments like our Starfield review, during the Xbox FTC Redfall's launch, I think we shined more than we ever have before. I think the fact that those episodes were universally loved in the biggest moments of Xbox's year, which is, where you want to be at your A game. I'm proud of us on that front. I'm proud that people come to us to hear the conversations, even though we don't get, I'll say it for real, we do not get special treatment. We do not get the interviews. We do not get the host. The people that we request for this show are the same ones you're seeing go to other shows. I don't know what it is. We do not get that. But the fact that we can still pull those numbers and show that we have an impact, that's what matters, because we're trying to serve you to the best of our ability. And so we just appreciate you being there for us in spades this year. This is definitely a big year for the Dukes, where, year one was pretty good, but then with Carrick leaving and a lot of changes to the show, it kind of tapered off a bit. And I had to restructure and analyze and find, like, what's our title cadence? What's our thumbnail cadence? Like, how are we going to get people in the door here without them feeling misled or jaded or pissed off? And like, I've made mistakes on that this year for sure. I think there were times that things came across a little too baity, and that's on me. But I think now with the fun thumbnail cadence and the titling, like, I think we finally found this thing where the conversation is about the show. So I appreciate everyone bearing with us as we, continue to move along with this. And thank you for our best year yet. I truly appreciate it.
No doubt. Well said. 2024. Here we come. Excited for the future of the show, what we got doing. And yeah, man, I'm ready. And then also, for those who didn't know, so I might as well get it out the way now. Excited for the next chapter of my life, career-wise.
Oh, we're doing this now.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's just get it out, since everybody, we're having our character monologue. So for those who don't know, I'm no longer with Meta. No hard feelings, anything like that. But, I'll be looking at excited opportunities that's more game sensible, gaming adjacent kind of thing. And in the meantime, I still got, things that I'm doing that I'm excited about, short term. So who knows where the path will go, but I am excited for what is to come. And I still get to do, in addition to that, podcasting and the stuff I love. So that's what I'm probably looking forward to the most in 2024.
Yes, sir. Well, congrats to you. And I'm very excited for your next chapter, because you got a lot of good stuff lined up for you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you listening to our main character moments here. We hope you enjoyed the last episode of Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast for 2023. We appreciate you immensely, and we will catch you in 2024 with our next episode of Defining Duke. So take care until then, and peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the United States of America. The show is conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Barry Lord Cognito Eversley. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level on Patreon, and we're thankful for your kindness and generosity.